post-cult worldview ride-along. In this episode, I want to discuss the question, is it ethical to try to take away a person's faith? I want to cover three different areas. The first area would be the concern of the atheist or non-believer. That concern being that beliefs have consequences. When we have a belief in divine revelation, special revelation through a specific inspired book, and we believe that that book is inerrant, that it is the Word of God, and it is uniquely so. A commitment to that kind of belief allows people to use a book like that and their interpretation of that book to oppress others. That's a very real consequence of belief. So I want to acknowledge that. Everything else that I'm going to say in this video is within that context. I realize that is a very legitimate concern. This is why I am for the separation of church and state. That's all I'll say about that for the moment. I realize it's a big subject. Now the second point is the question of how to handle people that are in high control groups, whether it be Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, exclusive brethren, even the Amish. Within these groups, you have tight families in a very insular culture. Now, for mankind's history, we have tended to be very tribal. And these kinds of organizations are kind of the last vestige of really tight tribal cultures. I'm not prepared to say that that is completely worthless. I can hardly believe those words are coming out of my mouth. But it's a cost-benefit analysis. When you have a group that's that insular, there's a certain amount of comfort that comes with it. Is it okay to tear that away from people? It didn't work for me, and it doesn't work for a lot of people. I mean, that's why I do what I do, is I want to make it easier for people that it doesn't work for to start rebuilding their life. But if it's working for somebody, who am I to come along and tear it away from them? You know, if you are a true believing Mormon and you've never once questioned your faith, and you have a really tight family that are all true believing Mormons, and you're content, and you have this hope that gives you meaning in your life, would it be ethical to tie down a Mormon and pry open their eyelids and make them look at the history of their organization and show them that Joseph Smith was a charlatan? Like, would that be ethical to do that? I'm honestly not sure, but I think it's important that we as former Jehovah's Witnesses, especially ones who identify as activists, to be mindful of this issue and at least be asking the question. It feels important to me anyways. You know, with the Watchtower, if you leave the organization, you go through trauma. There will be shunning. Watchtower gets the blame for that shunning. It's their policy. But if I start that ball rolling for somebody who was content and the end result is that they get shunned, do I bear a measure of that responsibility? I want to just say no, but again, I think it's an important question to ask. So I don't have a really concrete thought about this, and I would love to hear your feedback, especially on that subject of trying to awaken people that are in authoritarian groups but are content. The answer might be that none of them are content, even though some of them think they are. I'm open to that as a possibility too. If there is spiritual abuse, or if an organization is using spiritual abuse, are all members victims, whether they're fully aware of it or not? These are tough questions to ask. And, people that are social libertarians would say that it's not our business to ask. It's up to the individuals in the group to make that decision. Well, if you understand undue influence, that's problematic too, because people can be influenced to believe something is the best for them without an understanding of how much happier they could be without that kind of influence in their life. So it's a very complicated issue, and I don't want to ramble about it too much. Let's get to the third point. Bertrand Russell is quoted as saying something along the lines of, "It is treacherous to hold to a belief merely because we feel it is useful, that we really should only believe in things that are true." I understand that. That has a very logical sound to it. But I'm not convinced that that is the most human and healthy approach to life. From the perspective of neuroscience, it is objectively beneficial for people that believe in a God of love, or a God that is love. It adds to the quality of their life. It adds to their well-being. On the other hand, if you are a person who believes in a wrathful God, a God of vengeance, a God that is to be feared, a God of judgment, that is objectively harmful to a person's mental health and well-being. So if you're talking to somebody who is a hardcore, Unity Pentecostal or something, they have a really intense belief in a God that tortures people consciously for eternity, and that has this grotesque fear of original sin and imposes that on their children, that's a problem that might be worth trying to soften in that person's worldview. On the other hand, if you're talking to somebody who has kind of a nebulous idea of a God of love, and that adds quality to their life and helps them to be more empathetic and see more beauty in the world and in their fellow man, why is it so important to you to take away that belief if you're an atheist? Why do they need to have the same worldview as you if their beliefs are, from the perspective of neuroscience, actually benefiting them? I think this is one of the things that makes us as a species special. We have evolved spirituality in a way that apparently no other animal has. And we're able to experience things with our more complex brains that other animals cannot. We're able to have transcendent experiences and contemplate these concepts of something greater than ourselves. Whether that is a literal thing that exists or not isn't important. It's an idea, this idea of a greater love or a greater connectedness. It's a concept that we can harness and use to improve the quality of our life, to feel better, to feel closer to the people around us. Again, is it ethical to try to take that away from people? These are complex questions, and I don't have really great answers for them. But I think about these things a lot, and I'd love to hear your thoughts as well. So comment below, and remember, there are more things in heaven and earth than are dreamt of in our philosophies.